So I just played Persona 5 Strikers, a Jehuty Gaming review. Hey guys, Jehuty here, and after replaying Persona 5 Royal and putting out my review, it was only natural to play through Persona 5 Strikers after my unboxing video. The game is a direct sequel to Persona 5 and was co-developed with Omega Force from Koei Tecmo. This love child between them and P Studio from Atlus brings an unexpected game that is different yet familiar. Please enjoy my review. Persona 5 Strikers takes place half a year after the original Persona 5. Joker comes back to Tokyo to spend his summer vacation with the old gang, the Phantom Thieves. Everyone decides to do a barbecue and they task Joker and Ryuji to do some errands. By chance, a pop idol named Alice is holding an event nearby. She gives everyone a friend's invitation card via the Emma phone app, including you two. Upon inputting the friend's invitation into their phone, they find themselves in the metaverse again, that they thought wasn't possible after the ending of Persona 5. It is here they realize people's desires are being stolen and making these people into obedient followers. Joker, Ryuji and Morgana are eventually captured and brought forth to the ruler of this so-called jail, and told to be discarded since their desires cannot be stolen. Trying to break out and find a way back to reality, they meet a mysterious girl named Sophia that helps them. In the real world, it turns out Sophia is a high-tech AI and promptly lives on Joker's phone. After relaying the information to the others, a plan is formed to take down the ruler and free the stolen desires. It turns out that once again, there's something bigger at play here, and it's a great pretense to have the whole gang travel around Japan. This time around, all the Phantom Thieves have been developed story-wise, so this game trims that, making the story shorter and more straightforward. You don't necessarily have needed to play the predecessor, but it adds a bit here and there, mostly for the laughs. For me, the biggest surprise came in form of the monarchs that replaced the palace rulers from the previous game. I see a page was taken out from Persona 4, as the villains have their own conflicts and some of them can really feel relatable. We can also talk about some of the other new characters, such as the researcher Kyon Ichinose. She's a very eccentric and slightly strange woman you occasionally bump into whilst touring Japan. And then on the other hand, we have the other new character who is Senkichi Hasegawa. I really like this guy. He works for public security and cuts a deal with the Phantom Thieves. You wonder if you can fully trust him, and sometimes things with him lead to weird situations.
The shady detective.
I'm pub-sec, not just some cop detective. Wait, I'm not shady.
Yes, quite.
These kids are something else. Would you quit saying that kind of stuff with that smile on your face?
He takes his work really seriously, but has some things in the past that he's hiding and an inner conflict of what justice actually is to him. Personally, I don't think the story is quite up there with the predecessor, and that final chapter in the game steals a bit too much structure from the vanilla Persona 5 story. Overall, the story is shorter, and you could see it through in 40 hours. This time around, there are also no conditions to be met for alternative endings. You get one ending, that's it. Overall, I don't mind this at all. As I mentioned in my Persona 5 Royal review, I thought that game was a tad too long in certain parts. This is good news for newcomers of the series who were scared off by the complexity and length of the predecessor. You're still, however, getting a good and deep story despite the slightly more mainstream approach. Just as Persona 5 before it, Persona 5 Strikers is divided in two major gameplay types: exploring in the metaverse and the other things in the real world. In this entry, there's a slightly bigger focus on the dungeon exploring and combat. Persona 5 Strikers goes for a real-time battle system instead of a turn-based combat system. It's been a while since I played a Musou game from Omega Force, but I'm really liking this one. What this means is that in a real-time environment, you're fighting a whole horde of enemies at once. Most of these can be seen as cannon fodder and don't put up much of a fight. However, if you underestimate them and their combinations, you can easily be overwhelmed. Strikers surprises in just how well it incorporates everything that makes up the typical Persona combat, without being turn-based. You still unleash your persona to use different elemental attacks just like in the predecessor, Once again, Joker can utilize a collection of persona due to having the wildcard skill and switch between them mid-battle. The other 3 companions in battle also have their unique persona. Again, you can also manually control each character if you so desire. In addition, they also feel different from one another when you use normal attacks and ranged attacks, so you're incentivized to do so. With so many enemies at once on screen, things can get chaotic quite often. However, when you want to use a skill or an item, the happenings are momentarily paused, allowing you to plan and also make sure your magic's area of effect is where it should be. Strikers also incorporates the use of weaknesses to get an advantage. Like this, you get an additional hit on your enemy after exploiting their weakness, or even go for a big all-out attack. Identifying weaknesses this time around has also been streamlined by Futaba or Morgana figuring it out early on in battle, instead of you analyzing or figuring it out by a trial and error. Even Showtime makes a return, but is now performed by a single character instead of 2, like in Persona 5 Royal. Once again, boss battles are a visual treat that test your understanding of the combat system. I won't lie, I died a few times on these. Some of them can instantly do a ton of damage, and if you're not paying close attention to all your party members at the same time, one of them can be taken out without you noticing immediately. Combat is different yet still great and familiar. On the other hand, the actual exploration isn't anything special. The jails aren't as interestingly crafted as the palaces were before. This is partially down to needing to be more open enough to accommodate these large battles. But that's not all. Unfortunately, most jails follow the same order of finding 3 MacGuffins to unlock the way to the Monarch. Then the game also has you mostly needing to do something small in the real world to unlock the area to the boss battle. Once again, you will also spend time in the real world, however not as much this time around. This is due to there not being that much optional stuff to get sidetracked on. For instance, social links aka confidants are not around anymore. They are replaced with a simplified bond system that is focused solely on your party members and levels mostly through the main story and battle. There are also side quests and side stories, but nothing as complex as with the previous game. The Velvet Room makes a comeback with Lavenza being its only residence providing Joker assistance. Once again, you can register your collected persona or fuse 2 or more persona together to create even stronger persona. I also feel that Lavenza isn't really integral to the story this time around. The time management aspect is also gone. If you enter a jail, you can enter and leave as many times as you like without the day passing. This coupled with the more streamlined aspects of Strikers makes the game shorter. I clocked in about 50 hours while also doing some side quests and taking my time. Just like the original, Persona 5 Strikers is a heavily stylized game that nails the anime look. Some assets have been lifted straight out of the original. However, props go out to Omega Force for the new locations as you tour around Japan. These really fit in well so that you wouldn't even notice that another developer was at the helm. Once again, menus just ooze out style in every corner. However, I'm a bit disappointed in the jails. They don't feel as meticulously crafted as the palaces before them, and they also visually slightly feel different from the rest of the game. I also don't get why pre-recorded cutscenes in in-game graphic are here, when they could have just run in real time like in the previous game.
What?
The soundtrack consists mostly of remixes and some new songs. There are also returning songs used mainly in story beats. Personally, I think the new stuff is good, but not quite as good as the original or the enhanced Royal version. But for people like me, there's the option to switch to the vanilla version or the Royal version soundtrack. Much appreciated. What I forgot to mention in my Royal review that also counts here is the voice acting. It doesn't matter if you decide to play the game in Japanese or English, the voice actors do a great job of bringing the characters to life. However, just like its predecessor, Strikers has a whole lot of dialogue. In terms of the main story, most of it is dubbed, yet you'll still be reading a lot. In side quests, you'll be reading throughout. On PlayStation 4 and Nintendo Switch, load times can be slightly long, especially when you're coming from the previous game. Another thing on the consoles that is evident is the aliasing compared to vanilla Persona 5 or Royal. The edges of characters especially show a shimmering through this. This time around, the target frame rate is 60 FPS on the PlayStation systems. On the Switch, it's that of 30 frames. Resolution in both cases targets Full HD. On PS4 Pro, the resolution is supposedly bumped up to 4K, thus lending itself well to be played on the PS5 via backwards compatibility. But no one knows if it's native 4K or not. You're also given two modes to choose from: prioritize frame rate or prioritize resolution dubbed quality mode. Of course, on PC, the game can be made to suit what your PC can handle. Persona 5 Strikers is a quite different sequel, yet familiar in its aspects. It's definitely a sequel with an interesting story, having a more action-oriented battle system and being a bit more streamlined, making it easier for newcomers to give it a chance, whilst also retaining the aspects that made the previous game so endearing. This time around, you won't get as much playtime, but more than enough compared to your average game. If you're a Persona veteran, then there is no need to be skeptical of this entry. And if you're curious about the series, this may be a more approachable game to start out with. Don't forget to check out my unboxing video of Persona 5 Strikers as well as my in-depth review of Persona 5 Royal. Thank you for watching till the end. I hope you enjoyed it. Consider subscribing because that helps me the most. Also leave a like and share the video, and I would like to hear your thoughts in the comment section. This is your boy Jehuty, and I'll see you on the next I Just Played review.